Good morning to yourself and good morning to everybody else that's online, and thank you for the invitation. So in relation to who I am or my role, so my role, I work for the Metropolitan Police. My current role is I lead a department that is responsible for crime prevention, community engagement and diversity and inclusion, and that responsibility is across the whole of London for the 32 boroughs. My role is to ensure that we've got an oversight of what's happening across London, looking at forging strategic partnerships. At the moment, one of the key areas of focus is around the term which is being used, community engagement. But if I go to your specific question as to why should your listeners and why should people be linking in or working with the police, my fundamental point would be is that this is a policing service. It may not feel like it to some, but it's a service that, that's supposed to be providing a service to all people of London. And in another way of looking at it is for you to say that you are all customers of the police. And so therefore, if you look at it that way, if you're a customer and you're not happy, you're not satisfied with the service that is being provided, then you should play an active part in making sure that you get the service that you need. We can talk about trust and confidence. We can talk about the current views in terms of what's happened in America, initially George Floyd and the recent shootings. We can talk about rising tensions, particularly within the Black community. Terms that will be used will be around stop and search, disproportionality, and all of those type of things. These are things which have an impact on people's day-to-day lives. And one of the things that I'm responsible for is how do I work with all sections of the community to one, increase understanding, because I think that's one of the fundamentals of any type of engagement, is you need to look at it as a relationship. And to have a relationship, you need to be able first to listen and understand and demonstrate that you have listened and that you understand. The feedback that I've been receiving in the time that I've been within the role is that there is a feeling particularly within the Black community and certain sections of the Black community, that one, their voices aren't being heard. And when they are given the opportunity to voice their concerns, their voices aren't being listened to. And then if they are being listened to, there isn't this demonstration of understanding. And if you are in a position where you are trying to have a relationship with somebody and you feel that your voice is not being heard and you're not being listened to, it's then not surprising that you will not feel the need to maintain that relationship and continue with the engagement. And that for me is a big, big problem, because it goes back to the point that I'm making, which is we are here to provide us a service. And if we're not able to engage with people, then we're failing in our duty to do that. It is a two-way responsibility. There are a number of areas that we have been working on for a number of years. More recently, over the last few months, We've been trying to work with community leaders, business leaders, academics, particularly, and faith leaders, particularly from the Black community, to be able to say, how do we address some of the concerns? And we've set up an advisory group. That advisory group has probably been in existence for the last 7 to 8 weeks. So it's recently been formed. Each of the members, I have personally reached out and had conversations with them. Many of the people on that group have thrown the challenge to me to say, why do I want to be joining a group? I don't want to be part of a group that is just a talking shop. And if I feel that this group is going to be a talking shop, then I will leave the group. So for me, I'm very much of the mind that I like to a lot of stuff needs to be through action. Yes, there is a need for discussion, but there is a need for definite action. What has the group has achieved in the period of time that it's been there? We've got members who are now involved in influencing how the Metropolitan Police goes about recruitment. There is a big drive to increase the numbers of officers from Black and Asian and other minority backgrounds. Personally, I don't like the term BAME, because for me, we should be celebrating our difference. One term should not try to collectively put us into one group. I'm proud to be Black. I'm from Jamaican parents. I'm proud of my heritage. And I should be saying to anybody, they should also be proud of their heritage. I don't see myself as being any better than anybody, but I most certainly am not inferior to anybody at all. And I think those are the type of things that we need to reinforce. So we've got a group that is involved in recruitment. I can touch on that in a bit more detail if anybody wants to know some more information. But at the moment, the Metropolitan Police has paused its recruitment drive until the beginning of next year. That's because of the numbers that we've already got. But there's a real opportunity for not just young people, but anybody, especially at this time during COVID, where a number of people have either lost their jobs or they've got uncertainty about their ongoing careers. There's an opportunity to join the police. And the new system that is in place is where you can study to earn a degree in policing and at the same time learning the role of becoming a police officer. So in effect, the police are paying you to gain a degree. It provides you with an opportunity to influence change. And the analogy is you can either be in the boat affecting the direction and steering the direction, or you can stand on the side and watch the boat go by. And I'm a great believer in being part of an organization and influencing the change, because this is not a service for just white people. This is a service for all people, and we should play an active part in determining the direction and how things are being done. It's not what we do, it's how we go about doing it. So there's an opportunity in terms of recruitment. We've got some members of the advisory group that are involved in influencing the training that is being provided to our officers, giving them a better understanding of the different cultural backgrounds within London, giving them more of an understanding of the history of the police and how they have interacted historically with the Black community, so that a young in-service officer, when they are engaging with somebody from a certain community, they might understand why that community may not be so warm or may not be so receptive because of what they've experienced historically. So it's trying to get our officers to get a better understanding. We've also got a group which is involved in trying to influence our messaging, because we have historically have not been good at adapting about how we inform the public about what we're doing. And I'm sure a lot of the stuff that I'm saying to your listeners now, many of them will be saying, this is the first time I've heard about this. And that is where we need to improve. We need to be better on social media. We need to engage in different forums. We need to be doing events like this. We need to be getting out and about. Obviously, it's a bit challenging now that COVID is there, but that should not pose as a barrier for us doing such things. We've got another subgroup which is looking at a contentious area, which is about the use of force by police officers. A lot of you will be aware of the social media, where you'll see viral videos, where you'll see an encounter with a police officer, and predominantly it's an encounter with a member of the Black community. Those type of images erode the trust, which is already at an all-time low. So this meeting that we have on a weekly basis is to review those type of videos, have community leaders, community members being part of these meetings, giving their views as to what they are seeing, but also to provide those community leaders with an opportunity to view the body-worn videos which are carried by the officers, which on some occasions can provide a different context, can provide a different perspective to what may have been viewed. But more often than not, what we've found within those discussions is that senior leaders have recognized the need not to try to justify their actions, not to try to be on the defensive, but to actually pause and listen and understand the concerns that have been raised by the community. And some of the positive things that have come from those meetings is, if we look at the a few weeks ago, Bianca Williams, one of the Olympic athletes, with her 3-month-old child and her partner, and they were stopped. When people saw that, majority of people were outraged, because they looked at it from a human perspective, saying to themselves, this was a family with a 3-month-old child. What the hell were the police playing at, behaving in such a way? But the response from the police at the time was to say that the officers did not conduct or did not do anything wrong from a misconduct point of view. They completely missed the human aspect. They completely missed the fact that these are human beings. Now, by having those discussions within our strategic advisory group, we are looking to inform and get our officers to start changing their mindset, to start viewing members of the Black community as human beings, and to start saying, if this was my family, would I like my family to be treated that way? That is slowly starting to raise the understanding, and that is slowly starting to build the relationships, which is what we are trying to do. Another group which we have got, and that is looking at the use of handcuffs, because we've identified that it would appear that officers are routinely, when they're engaging with young Black males, handcuffing them even before they've had a conversation. And we need to be stopping that and asking the questions, why is that happening? We've also got a group which is looking at these unlicensed music events. There's been a lot of discussion, obviously, over the bank holiday. It would have been Notting Hill Carnival, but there was a real drive to stop these unlicensed music events from happening. But the way that it was being portrayed within the media, and the media have a responsibility, it was about the police against people looking at holding events. But what we needed to recognize was the public was saying to us, why is there such a big drive to stop these unlicensed music events within London? But then when you see the beaches crowded by people, the police are not looking at dealing with it in the same way. Why is there a disconnect? Is it because on the beach it was predominantly white people, but when you start talking about these unlicensed music events, there is this presumption that it's all blacks? But what we've also found, and I'll speak specifically about what happened in Brixton, there was an unlicensed music event in an estate within Brixton. And we had the local residents calling the police to say they did not want this to happen. The police went down there to try and stop the event from taking place. But what then happened was a number of people that didn't live within the area then started to throw bottles, started to throw missiles. The media pick up the story, and their slant on it is this was the police against the community, when in fact it was not the police against the community. The feedback that we got from local residents was that they were appreciative of the efforts that were taken by the police. They hoped that the police could have acted a lot sooner, but they also recognized that there were certain sections of the community that were there with a clear intention to cause disorder. So the point I'm trying to make here is only by us regularly engaging and working together can we provide the service that I believe we should be providing. But the police cannot do it by themselves. We've got to break down this them and us type of scenario. There are a number of barriers that are causing us to have those barriers there. I will be the first to turn around and say, as a policing service, we have not got it right. There are some areas that we need to improve. But in any type of relationship, it is about both sets of groups recognizing that there are areas that we can all improve upon and try to identify some common ground. And the common ground for me is, and I'll make a sweeping statement here, the majority of people want to be able to go about their daily lives feeling safe and secure and not being threatened. If they are under any concerns, they should be able to reach out to the policing service to provide them with that support. And if they feel at this moment in time they can't do that because they see the police as the main source of antagonism, that shows how much more work we have got to do. So I could talk a lot more, but I think probably be easier for me if I was to pause and open it up in terms of questions, because more often than not, by the questions that I receive, that will give me a clearer steer as to the areas of concern. And what I would say is I have 29 years service within policing. I'm a grown man, I can take it. So please do not pull any punches, say it as it is. But what I will also say is, as much as you give it, as much as you give to me, if I feel that I need to push back, I will do it, but I will do it respectfully, because it's a two-way conversation. So thank you.
There's one question that I have before I'd like to open up to everyone. and it's around training for your officers around special needs, recognizing that there are people with, for example, autism, who may have quote unquote erratic behavior, and which could be interpreted as aggressive, or there's something where they feel uncomfortable, they wear a hoodie, and you think, oh, their profile, their risk. And I'm just wondering, do you get or give training to the officers to observe people with special needs?
That's a very, very interesting and a very good question. So to answer your question, yes, we do. Is there more that could be done? I would say absolutely. And there are some wider issues that relate to the question that you posed. But if I was to cover it from, if you were just to consider yourself for a moment, if you were to consider that you were a police officer and you're walking down the street, and instinctively, human mind is conditioned. We do, within literally less than a second, we do what's called the ABC. We look at somebody, and the first thing we do is we look at the appearance. And in our mind, we're kind of programming and thinking, that appearance, is that in line with what we would consider to be normal? So for example, if you're walking down the street and if you saw somebody that was completely naked, but they had a flower and that flower was covering their private parts, you would pretty much say that's unusual. That's what the mind automatically does. You're then saying to yourself, the B is like the behavior. How is that person behaving? So it's the point that you're saying somebody's got a hoodie on, why they're wearing it, is it fashionable? Is it the fact that they're looking to contain themselves? There could be a number of reasons. And then you look at the way that they communicate. And it's not just verbal, it's the non-verbal, it's the body and all the other things. So part of our training is to be able to very quickly look at somebody and start to try to make an assessment. You then have to put into that cultural differences, because certain cultures will behave in a certain way. Certain cultures, they're taught to look at people in the eye. Other cultures, as a mark of respect, you don't. You look down. And it's being able to try to program all of those different things. And then you come into this area of mental health. And mental health, there are so many different spectrums that we could and should be considering. You could be dealing with somebody that you might feel is drunk, but you could find out that they're actually a diabetic. So there's so many different things that police officers have to consider. We look to regularly train them, regularly increase their awareness. Is there more that could be done? Absolutely. But what we also find, and this isn't a political statement, but what we find is quite often a number of people that are currently out and about in the community do need additional support from other social services. And we know due to austerity, many of those people are not getting their support. And quite often, the police are seen as the service that is then being asked to deal with those scenarios. Quite often, we will be taking somebody into custody and they shouldn't even be going to a police station. They should be going to a hospital or be getting specialist care. So we cannot do it by ourselves, but in terms of your question around training, we get it. Is there room for improvement? Yes, there is. And a lot of it is about how we work to continually improve what we're doing.
Thank you, Jeff. Thank you very much. We have Vanessa with us today. She works with autistic children, and she has been on the platform before and shared an experience where there was a young lad who was aggressively dealt with by the police, and he disclaimed his condition, but it was overridden. But I know even through that, she's persistingly pursuing relationship with the police to train and upskill. So Vanessa, good morning to you. Is there something you would like to share with some of the work you're doing with the Met Police, and perhaps maybe pose a question to Jeff?
Okay, I suppose for me, like I've always said, my son is 17 now, but it's taken years of pushing to be heard, because when it comes to autism within the Black community, it has always been an issue. So my question is how can we engage? Even though I know I'm doing a pilot with, I think it's Abs, who's up at, is it New Scotland Yard, Community and Engagement?
Yes, he works within my team.
So I'm looking to do something with him, but for me, because I'm based in South London and I do work in the Croydon Aubrey area as well, is how we can engage so that I can outreach to the Croydon area, because I'm doing Lambeth and I'm doing Wandsworth. I just feel at the moment what we need is how we can engage, because I know lots of families, Black families, who still do not want to accept what autism is. And once their son gets caught up in the criminal justice system, they're coming to me to help. But like I said, I only can do so much. And we need more Black male representatives, because at the moment, a lot of the mothers in particular are struggling with their Black youths, especially because of lockdown and going back to school, face masks, resisting to wear it. We're getting lots of complaints because, again, a lot of the Black community don't want to engage. So it'd be nice that we can get the police to engage with me, and Institute of Wellbeing as well, because I think if we all come together collectively, we're able to bridge the gap between certain people who are not probably listening to me.
Okay, so I think the positive is that you are linking in with Abs, who is part of my team. As I said, our department role is to have that central oversight, and what we can then do is provide the links to the relevant commanders that are responsible for the geographical areas. I think there's also an opportunity where we can link you in with other community groups that have networks. I believe Donna Murray Turner was on one of your conference calls before, and she's somebody that we work with. So I think a lot of it is about networking and linking in with many of these groups, because the way that I look at it sometimes is London is a distinct, defined geographical area, and there are many groups out there looking to do many different things, and it's tried to piggyback on those existing networks to ensure that we can then facilitate people like yourself and others that are trying to promote and enhance an important area. So I would say that we're happy to help you move that forward. But I think the positive thing is, one, you're linked in with the right person. And one of the things that I will do as a result of this call, I will link in with Abs just to find out how far he has progressed in moving it to the next stage that you're asking.
Brilliant. Thank you, Vanessa, and thank you, Jeff. Fiona, you've posed a question around disproportionality. Would you be kind enough to share it as a conversation, please?
Good morning, Mike. Morning, all.
Morning.
Thank you, Mike. I have observed myself, and you've made reference to the videos and reported anecdotal information that generally makes reference to a huge number of police officers responding to a particular incident, or it might even be a stop, stop a young person, stop and search, or stop and question. And you, from what I have seen, what I have witnessed to myself, on more than one occasion, you would see initially one or two officers, and then you would see a van pull up, two cars pull up, and there would be an what really appears to be an overwhelming presence, certainly at that point, of police officers, many of whom aren't even doing anything, but appear to be providing an intimidating presence. And obviously this will raise hackles, this will raise questions, and this will generally aggravate the situation that began with one person, perhaps. And that's not necessarily the only scenario. It could just be, generally speaking, in what is known to be a Black community, there would always tend to be a tremendous amount of police officers attending to a situation. How can this be justifiable? Because it doesn't seem to be common for other incidents with other groups.
Okay, so what I would, if I answer it in a couple of ways, so let me first start off by showing a degree of empathy, which as an organisation we are pretty short on in terms of demonstrating. I completely agree with you. I live within Thornton Heath. I was born and raised in Brixton, and I'm proud to live within a predominantly Black community, although Brixton's getting more and more cosmopolitan. But the way that, as I said before, it's not what we do, it's how we do it. And quite often, we do not help ourselves as an organisation, because if there is a need to stop somebody, there maybe needs to be maybe one or two officers to restrain the individual, and there's concerns for officer safety. But those other officers, in my mind, should be looking to speak to people, explain what's happening, provide reassurance, and look to de-escalate any potential tension. And it's the sheer volume of officers on occasions which rises the tensions and causes a negative perception. And those are the things that we have been speaking to, not just the officers, but also the supervisors, because the supervisors have got a responsibility to say, what does that look like? Because I have been a borough commander before, and I've been out on the streets and I've seen it myself. And I'll go up to an officer and they'll be saying to me, oh, look, Governor, we've arrested this person. I say, yeah, the arrest is okay. But how does that look? How does that look? And that is not in their mindset, because community engagement reassurance has kind of gone out the window. So we need to re-educate them to get them to say, yes, you can do an arrest, but it's how you do the arrest. Yes, there will be some people who will be problematic. They will be swearing. They will be abusive. There will be friends that will be saying stuff. But it's about how we are professional, how we rise above it, and how we speak to the wider community and say, look, this is what the situation is. We're dealing with it. It's all over, and calming people down. But we do not do that routinely. And that is something that we need to improve on. The other area is your question, which is around why is it that there is such high numbers of police officers in certain areas. So if you went to maybe, I don't know, High Street, Kensington, or Chelsea, or all Fulham, all these places, we know that's not going to be the same. But this is the reality here. When you look at knife crime, when you look at the numbers of people that are dying, the people that are dying predominantly from knife crime and gun-related activity are young Black males. This is happening within predominantly Black areas. But that doesn't mean that all Black people are committing those offences. So where I think we should be improving is our communication is to be honest and say, these are the geographical areas where these crimes are occurring. We will be having more officers in these areas to prevent people from dying. We want to work with you, the community, to let us know, are there any concerns and how do we provide that reassurance? So if we were working together in doing that, but what more than likely happens is we turn up unannounced, we do what we do, and then we leave. And that causes increased reticence, resistance, and all the other stuff. So there's two parts to it. The reason the resources are there is because they are high crime areas. We can't escape that. And we would be wrong not to be trying to prevent it, but it's how we do it and how we do that with the community so they feel that we're doing it to support them rather than targeting them.
I really appreciate you coming on and put yourself on the spot, because these aren't easy situations to discuss. I've got two follow-up questions, if you don't mind, if I can
Please.
take advantage. The first thing is, if you are going to be training your officers in these times of austerity, where you hardly have enough numbers on to be out in the field, how's that going to be managed? You know, maybe you'd have to pull people in and you don't have the resources to start with, the financing to start with. So I'm questioning, you know, how is that training going to happen and how soon can we look forward to it? Second thing is, back to what you were saying a while ago about the policing in high crime rate areas. First of all, it's not always in terms of attending sorry. My reference wasn't necessarily to other Black situations. It's other groups within the same communities don't get the same response. So yes, I can understand in a high crime area, you'd have a high response for what may be a Black and Black crime. However, that same area has other residents, other groups of residents, and they don't get that response. So does that mean that it's only the Blacks that you expect this crime level from, and that's what you're responding to? And then the second part of that is, maybe not a question, but a point, in that when the police turn up in these large numbers without having been present before, not just after, but they weren't present before, there was no relationship before, understandably, you're going to get resistance. You're going to find it difficult to make a connection after the heavy presence when you come in to explain your actions.
Absolutely. So if I just turn around and say, training is so important that we put it as a priority, and anything that is important, you find the time for. So what is really positive is we've got a number of members of this strategic advisory group who actively are involved in reshaping our training, looking at bringing community members, getting young people to actively be involved in the training, doing role plays so officers get a better understanding of the behaviours and recognising that the way that someone's acting is not because they're being suspicious, it's just the way that they are. That is so important that you cannot put it to the side and say we're too busy. That's what we've got to be doing, and that's what we've already started doing. We've got a lot more to be doing. There's a lot in terms of improvement. Now, in terms of targeting, I do not believe in targeting, but what we should be doing is being intelligence-led. And what that means is by getting information, and I'm going to really simplify it here, not because it needs to be simple, but I'm just trying to make a simple point. But if we know I'll use an example. When I was in Croydon, we had a circumstance where I think it was like a 4-week period where every week we had a young black male stabbed and a couple were fatally wounded. And I made a point, from a human point of view, of going to see the families. And each one of them was saying, what are you doing to stop this? What are you doing to stop the next family experiencing this? Now, if the description of the people that have committed these offences are black males, who are we going to be looking for? Black males. But it doesn't mean that it's only black males that are committing crime. Of course we know that other sections of society are committing crime. But if we're looking at violent crime and we're looking at the causes and the people that are committing it, we will go to those individuals. But we will be more effective in doing that if sections of the community that actually know who are committing these crimes, but don't want to be telling us because they don't want to be speaking to the police. And I'm in the church and I'm seeing the families grieving over their loved ones, and the very people that know who have committed those crimes are sat in that church and not saying anything. How is that right? That's indefensible. That's where I'm saying we've got to be working together to challenge this, because we, the police, recognize that we've got to improve, but sections of the community also have to step up and play their part. The final part, which you said about large numbers, my preference is that local community officers should be building those relationships so that we reduce the need for these specialist assets to come in on certain occasions to do what they're doing. But even if they come in, they should also be displaying the same type of empathy and understanding. That is an area that we have to improve on. I'm not going to deny that at all. When I see some of them, I just literally, I go to the supervisors and I'm saying, this isn't a war zone. There's no need for you to behave like that. So there's a lot of work that needs to be done. But what I'm saying to you is, we've got to work together on this. It cannot be a them and us. I will be the first to say when there are things that we need to improve, but we, Black community, we've also got to step up and play our part in this as well.
Wow. Do you know what, sorry, Fiona, just to say, Jeff, I think we might need to have you back on because there's a number of questions being posed in the chat box, and we've only got half an hour left, but we're doing well. We're doing well. Before we get into some of these questions, Jeff, you've hinted twice about you being human, just being humane. You visited the families after the deaths and so on. You stated you grew up in Brixton, you live in Thornton Heath. And so you would have remembered the riots in Brixton. Why did you become a police officer?
I think, is David recording this? So I'm going to make a disclosure. Yeah, when the riots were out, I was kind of out there as a young boy, just running up and down the streets, full of the excitement and everything else. But when it came to friends going into shops and taking TVs and everything else, one of the things that was in the back of my mind was, if my mum or dad knew that I was doing that, there was absolutely, so that stopped me from making that step. Now, I could have easily been stopped by the police because I was in the area, and I have been stopped many times, even at this late stage in my life, still get stopped because I'm Black or whatever. Why did I join? I suppose it's probably from my own upbringing, from my mother, who's sadly passed away. I just want to give back. I actually want to make a difference. I can genuinely say that I wake up each day. Yeah, there are some days where you're thinking to yourself, I've had enough of this, but if you can have an impact on somebody else's life for the better, and you can do that through service, then I will still look to do what I'm doing, because I genuinely believe this is our police service. And if we see that it's a service that's not providing what we need, we've got to go in there and make the changes, because I do not want to have my young daughter experiencing what I have experienced at a young age. I want her to be able to go about enjoying her life and not have to worry about the color of her skin or feel that she's going to be targeted or anything else. And as I said, my parents are from Jamaica. The police in Jamaica are predominantly black. So why should we have this kind of mindset that we will engage with police in Jamaica, but we won't engage in the police over here? So we need to increase the numbers. So yeah, very simple answer. That's why I joined. I wanted to make a difference. I know it sounds trite, but you got to start somewhere. Great answer. Thank you, Jeff. And my second question to attach to that is, going forward, I remember Victor Elisa, he was a chief soup as well. Can you become, do you think there's really room at the top where decisions can be really effectively made and rolled out? The old glass ceiling. Yeah, I mean, from a personal perspective, do I want to go to that next level? It doesn't interest me. Mainly because, as I said, I've got 29, almost 30 years, and you make certain decisions in your life. But taking it away from a personal perspective, we need to have more diversity. We need to have more black males and more importantly, black females at senior levels to influence at a strategic level. Because quite often I'm sat in meetings and I'm hearing things being discussed, and for me, as a black male, it's quite clear what needs to be done. But I'm looking around a predominantly white room and they just do not have a clue. And until we get more diversity as of right, how you do it is by supporting each other. It's very difficult for black chief officers, because if you consider the job itself is hard enough, you've then got the added dimension of all eyes are on you. You've got your white colleagues looking to see if you're not only good enough, but are you 2 times as good? Because the age-old thing, you can't just be as good, and you've got to show that you're even better. And you then got to say, right, what is the support network around those people? Because it's very, very challenging when some days you might be working 20 hours. And if you can't be yourself within a 20-hour period, 6 days, 7 days a week, after a while, it's great, the point, this is a well-being clinic. My concern is the impact that it has on people over a period of time. And I personally, in the past 2 years, have actually taken a step out and had to review my own well-being, because it is a constant demand. It's a constant pressure on you, because one section of the community will say, you're a Judas, you're a coconut, you're a sellout. Then when you actually try to bring about change, people will say you're not doing it enough. So it's very, very difficult. And that's where your own sense of true identity, friends and family that you can call upon, and also colleagues, And in recent months, I've been lucky enough to meet people like David, Pastor Mike and others, Donna Murray. They give you that added enthusiasm to keep doing what you're doing, but it can be challenging, and I won't deny that.
Thank you for your honesty. I've got 5 more questions, and I think we can really portion control them. So, firstly, can I go to Lisa? Then I'll come to Sabrina, then David. So, Lisa, you've posted a few things. One of them, which I thought was quite interesting, is could police do open days for children? And I think there's some value in that. You know, I know you do school visits and so on, but could there be a space where children can come and start to understand with their parents what is expected of them as a model citizen, how they can engage, and we start from an early age, especially the young kids, and we train them from early. And I think what tags with that question, Jeff, is about rights, because we can learn our rights, but somehow they seem to be overruled by the police. So what can we teach kids, and can there be open spaces where they learn that? So I'm asking that question from Lisa, and then we'll go on.
So I would say in start of anything is possible. So I would say to Lisa, absolutely. What we already do, we've got volunteer police cadets where we have young people who join, their families see it as an opportunity. We do run open days. It kind of goes back to the point I was making about we do stuff, but we're not very good at advertising it. So I would just say, if I'm not sure, either through David or whoever, if Lisa wants to send her email address, then we can send some information as to how we can do that, how we can coordinate that. We can either do it via a school or do it, a lot of it's just about coordination. What is it that the inputs that we can do? In terms of rights, a lot of this is about knowing your rights, and we regularly run events through our neighbourhood teams. We're looking at trying to set up another subgroup which is around youth engagement, where we can look at working with young millennials, where they can work with us to see, right, how do we increase people's understanding about what they can and can do. But I would just say, if you Google Know Your Rights, there are a number of groups out there that are currently doing work in that area. A lot of it is about just knowing who's there and linking in with them, so we can do stuff in that area as well.
Brilliant, thank you. Dave, good morning. Please go ahead.
Morning, Mike. Thanks, Jeff. A, for making yourself available, and as always, your honesty and candor in what you said inspires confidence. As you were talking, it just got me thinking about the Black Police Association. I'm just, what role do they have to play? Is that an access point for the Black community? There's been lots of divergence and convergence with the Met Police. Look, I'm not asking for anything controversial. I'm just saying it seems like there's an organization of people within the organization, but sometimes the bite is weaker than the bark. So just what do we do in that space? And is that just offer a perspective on it, because we hear about it?
Right. So yeah, very good question. I'm not getting paid to advertise the work that she's doing, but Donna Murray Turner has been doing some events under the banner of Another Night of the Sisterhood. I think about 3 weeks ago, they ran a joint Zoom meeting with the Metropolitan Police Black Police Association, where they were talking about the work that they were doing. They recognize now that they need to increase their profile. They are a staff support association, and by the very nature of it, they should be there to provide support to those existing members of the Met Police. Not all black officers or black staff are a member of the Black Police Association, but in terms of getting on Google and looking up Black Police Association, their contact details are there. I do know that they are trying to do some more stuff within the communities. They're not just internally focused. They do some events. Some of you might be aware of this sporting program, which is called Kick Off at 3. If you wanted to Google that, and that is getting young people from different backgrounds to play football, and through that break down barriers. Now, the Black Police Association are involved in that, and that takes place across London. So I think a lot of it, David, is about just increasing profile and increasing people's awareness of some of the things that is actually going on out there.
Thank you, David. Thank you, Jeff. I'm going to put a question up just for us to give a quick poll, just to gather how we're feeling in this space. It's totally anonymous, as you know, but well, these are the results. Very interesting. Not sure, 75%, no, 15%, and only 10 said yes. So, you know, look, Jeff's here, he's taking the time out to say, I want to improve on those figures. If there's some conversion that could be done with the not sures, you know, and tip them in the right way because of community engagement, then he's going to work hard to do that. But he's also soliciting help from us. Jeff, do you have a thought on those figures and stats? Or is it saying what exactly is a cross sectional view of how most people think in London, particularly?
I think, not to answer your question, but to answer it, I think the most important thing out of all of this is that we're actually having the conversation. Yeah. And we need to maintain the conversation, and it's only by regularly having dialogue. So let me put it to you this way. If I meet somebody for the first time and someone says to me, am I going to trust that person? Am I really? You build trust over a period of time. You build trust over not only what they say, but how they demonstrate their actions. Now, if you've heard stuff beforehand and that does influence your view, then of course it's going to take even more to start to get you to trust. So I think the most important thing for me is one, meetings like this, but how do we amplify it? How do we maintain it? How do we continue it? How do we demonstrate that we're having meaningful conversations? Because there's no point in me coming on here and quoting facts and figures and trying to make it seem like everything is all right, because I know it's not all right. But at the same time, I'm hoping if there is just one person that I've spoken to that turns around and said, you know what? Okay, I hear what he's got to say. What can I now do as a result of that? Then it's a step in the right direction. So it doesn't happen overnight, but there is a degree of urgency because this is affecting us all on a daily basis. So we need to play an active part, because if we don't fill that gap, there are others that will fill it for us. And I'm tired of seeing important issues like this being led by people who just do not have a clue. They do not understand the Black perspective, and we need to step up and we need to take ownership.
Well said, Jeff. Absolutely well said. And I think what tags on to that, Jeff, is we may not trust the police, but we're potentially learning to trust you.
Well, listen, that's nice of you to say, but I'm not. when I was at Croydon, it was funny, when I first joined at Croydon, I went to a community meeting and the compere said, he's arrived, he's going to change it for us. I said, absolutely no way. Not one person cannot do it by themselves. I will do my best, but it cannot be done by me. And we've all got to play an active part in it. I will do the best that I can. I'm human. I will make mistakes. I'm working within an organization where a number of the people do not share my views as well. So that is a challenge. But I will do the best that I can, and as long as I'm in the role, and even when I'm out the role and I'm just walking the street as a normal person, I'll still be doing stuff, because that's what we've got to do, you know? So I just hope other people like yourself, like David, who've got an active involvement, likes of Lisa, Vanessa, all the others that have asked the questions. People will not ask those questions if they didn't genuinely care. So let's try and work together.
Excellent. Okay, so we've got 15 more minutes and there are more than 3 questions, but Sabrina, you've been holding for a while. Please go ahead.
Well, Jeff, obviously when we were all going to school, this black on black violence didn't exist. We weren't killing each other. It would be fights maybe in the playground, etc. So just from your perspective, you being out there on the front line, where did it all go wrong? Why have the youth got such poor respect for the police? Is it, I mean, we're all trying to answer that. I mean, I've got children of my own and I've taught them to respect the police. They still have that fear, of parents, they still have the fear of the police, but why is it that so many don't? So I don't know if you have a clue where it's all gone wrong and why it's gone wrong, and will it ever get better? Because it's not.
Well, great to hear from you, Sabrina, and love to link back in with you and Richard. So quite often I go past your old road near the football ground. So
yeah, Mum's still there. Still there.
Yeah. So in terms of your particular question, I think not all of it, but I think a lot of it is about what young people are consuming. And when I mean consuming, it's what they're watching on television, what they're watching on social media. And I'll take you right back to our school days. I remember watching Roots on TV, and the impact of watching Roots within the schoolyard, where you saw young black males starting to have arguments with white males because they were kind of upset, angry at what they saw on television in terms of what whites had done to the blacks in terms of slavery. So it's really, really important in terms of young black males, and I keep saying young black males, but they're very impressionable, watching what they see on social media, seeing all these things predominantly from America, this gang culture, Bloods versus Crips and all this type of stuff. And they start to follow what they see. And for me, it's what they're being fed on a day-to-day basis. And a lot of that also is around the family structure, and it's not for me to comment on people's parenting, but as we all know, it's very easy to actually have a child, but it's really, really hard to be a parent and be there and provide and educate and support. So there are so many different labels to it, but the police are seen as that authority figure, that establishment figure. But a lot of our youth, they're frustrated in terms of what they experience within schools. So many of them are being excluded at a young age. When I was at Croydon, I'm listening to teachers, oh, I excluded this young black boy because he's bigger than everybody else. How the hell is he supposed to manage his own physical growth? Just because he's bigger doesn't mean it's going to cause a problem. But there is this disproportionate treatment within schooling, education, the social service system, that quite often a lot of them feel that they've been abandoned. And the authority figure that they engage with more often than not is the police. So there are so many different layers to it, Sabrina. I don't have the silver bullet for it, but I think a lot of the causes are due to what they're watching, what they're being fed through social media. It is influencing the music, what they see on videos, how they, in terms of disrespecting women and all these other things. It's just what they're consuming. And if the parents aren't there to really explain to them and get them to change their thinking, they will go along that way. So I know it's a long answer. I'm not sure I've answered it as well as I could have, but for me, how do we regain that control? I'm very, very mindful about what my daughter watches and how I engage with her in terms of what and who she engages with. But you can't be there all the time.
Well said. And Jeff, we call what you said about the Brixton riots, and your consideration is, I can't bring this TV on. My mum's going to ask where I get it from. And that role of the parenting seems to we seem to allow our kids to do what they want to do, and we're not necessarily policing at home first. Rox, good morning to you. Please go ahead. Please unmute yourself.
Thank you. Hi, Jeff. Thank you. That was really, really interesting. There was so much that you said that really resonated with me. But firstly, like Sabrina, I'd like to applaud you for sticking it out and being there for 24 years. I'm also in public service, so I'm in central government. And I know what it means to be sometimes in a position where you're being criticised from one end, but yet you need to be there in order to influence and make the change. So what really resonated was when you talked about it's better to be in the boat and be the change that you want to kind of see yourself. So I think more of us need to be in those places so that we can influence and we can be reflective of what our communities need. The question I had for you is, so one of the things that I do is looking at how local services can work better together. What would you say are the biggest challenges in terms of services joining up, aside from public cuts, because we always know that's going to be a reality? What more can services do? Because the police are part of public services.
I suppose I'd ask the question first. So what forums are you actively engaged in, which are kind of like multi-agency, which have the police involved in? So
at central government, we're working with Home Office in terms of policing, Department of Health, DWP, myself, which is education, and also local government. And then within that, we're working with partners like the Institute of Wellbeing, where, you know, in terms of being able to access and speak to parents and hear parents and community voices.
Right. So in my experience, a lot of the strategic level discussion meetings that you're having are really, really good in terms of policy and strategy, but a lot of it, I hope you will agree, is about how that's delivered at a local level. And it's how do we get all of the key partners on a local authority level to work in partnership to deliver those particular areas. My previous role, I was what's called a BCU commander, so I had responsibility for Bromley, Croydon and Sutton. Now the challenge that I had was each of those was a different political persuasion, so trying to get them to work in partnership, they wouldn't do it, not because it wasn't the right thing to do, but they wouldn't do it because of the political impact. So when you are faced with that, it's how do you overcome that? And it's by turning the focus to be saying we are all public services and we should be providing the best service to the public. The public don't really give a damn what your political persuasion is. They want to be able to see that delivery. So I think there's a lot of, there's a real requirement for all of us to do a review of the existing structures, ask ourselves, are they actually effective? Are they actually delivering what we believe they should be? And ultimately, a lot of it is just about networking and speaking to the right people. Because I'm sure you all know, there are quite a few people that I will call them that are meeting goers. They go there, they talk a good talk, but they don't really do much afterwards. So it's being able to find the right people that are doing stuff. And it's amazing that when you start to bring about change and you start to see some glimmers of success, everybody wants to jump on board and everyone wants to get on board. So more than happy to link in with you just to maybe pick that up even further, whether or not there's anything that I can do within my central role, whether or not you feel in the forums that you're having your discussions, there is the right police representation and whether or not we're effectively delivering in that area. So hopefully that might have given you part of the answer, but I do believe a lot of it has got to be delivered at that local authority level.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, it'd be good to link up.
Okay.
Yvonne, you've been waiting patiently. We've got 4 minutes, but there are also things I need to close out with. So please do go ahead and
really quick. Hi, Jeff. Lovely to see you again. You made a sort of bit of a statement earlier, and sort of I support Donna, well, not obviously, but I support Donna at ANOS, and I recognise that you were very supportive of us as a community group, and this is the reason, a part of the reason why I feel, as well as with, you know, Donna's charisma and so on and so forth, the reason why we are now looked at as a community group that actually other organisations will work with. But we were blessed to have you as a borough commander at the time who believed in it. But in one of the statements you just made, not everybody thinks like you. So when I first came to listen to this session, I did think, okay, I'm going to maybe get the answers of how the community can better engage. But what I'm realizing is that there's lots of people in the community who want to better engage, but if they have commanders who don't believe in that side of their role, it doesn't happen. How do you feel we would change that for them to think differently?
Okay. There are many ways, but the two main ways of doing it is, the one simple one is to make contact with me, because my job is to link in with those borough commanders and ask them the questions to say, how are you doing with the community engagement? And 9 out of 10 of them will say, yeah, we're doing a good job. And then I'll ask the additional question and say, well, show me. And then when I see that there isn't that stuff there, then it's not about embarrassing, it's then saying, look, here are some people that want to work with you. The other way of doing it is, and it's actually, these are the things that we need to celebrate. The stuff that you are doing collectively through ANOS is amazing. Because yes, I was the borough commander for Croydon for a short period of time. And I was inundated with different groups coming to me. We want to do this, we're going to do this, we're going to do this. There were literally a handful that were able to demonstrate that they were organised, they had a clear focus, they knew what they were doing. And I was more than happy to support, because you guys were doing all of the work. Now, what needs to be done is sharing your experiences, sharing how you came together as a group, because that's what we need, is that mobilization within the community to be empowered, to be able to go to the respective borough commanders and not say to them, or pretty much say to them, I always say it's human nature. If somebody is going to criticize you, you're more than likely going to turn them off. But if you go to somebody and you're actually offering them something that's going to help them do their job, you hope that they're intelligent to recognize, I'm going to seize the opportunity. That's all I did when I was in Croydon. I seized the opportunity because you guys gave me that opportunity. What we need to do is create more of those opportunities across London, to go to the borough commanders to say, look, we can help you in an area that we feel that needs to be addressed. So all I can say to you is just keep doing what you're doing and spread the word. I'll be happy to do whatever I can do because I believe in what you're doing.
No problem. Thank you. Thank you.
Brilliant. Thank you, Yvonne. So Jeff, we're literally out of time. I've just got one final thing which I'd like to wrap up on. How do you keep your sanity, your good sense of mental health and well-being? Tough job, challenging job, unthankful job most of the time. How do you keep it together? What's your well-being strategy?
Very interesting that you asked that question, because I think when you asked right at the beginning, before the ladies spoke, what was a positive thing? So this morning I picked up the phone to a friend and I spoke. I'd said how I was feeling, and that person just listened to me and showed that they actually understood. So the fact that I knew that I could speak to somebody, that gave me the lift, because there's nothing worse than feeling like you're out there by yourself and that you're the only person that's going through what you're going through. So the positive thing for me is knowing that I've got people that I can call upon, people that I can call who are genuine friends, not the fair weather ones, the genuine ones. And that's what keeps me going, because the bottom line is you got an option. Either you lie down and let people walk over you, or you just keep walking and keep moving. So as long as I'm still mobile, then I'll keep doing stuff. I just saw, I think somebody put my mobile number. I'm not sure if the number is accurate. I'll quickly just say it if it helps. So my work mobile number is 07825 922 322. I would say this because I remember doing this a community event, and I said to people, feel free to give me a call. And it was about 3:30 in the morning, my phone's ringing, and I'm thinking there must be an emergency going on. And the person, Mr. Boothe, you were talking at a community event. I did have to count to 10 and just say, look, maybe you can call me at a more appropriate time. So I will say that just as a joke, but feel free to give me a call. If I can't get back to you straight away, I will do my best to speak to you. So I'd like to say thank you for giving me the opportunity to speak. I'm more than happy if you feel it's beneficial to do something again in the future, but it's always good to reach out. So thank you.
Thank you, Jeff. Ladies and gentlemen, can we give Jeff a massive round of applause for, like he said, taking time out, and he's willing to come back on again. Thank you so much, Jeff. Really do respect and value what you're trying to do, and hopefully we can solidify with you to help reduce crime, especially in the areas that we live in, work together in a community engagement strategy. So thank you again, Jeff. We really wish you well, and hopefully we could have you on maybe once a quarter and just build momentum and have some real particular conversations.
Yeah, sounds good to me, and have a good day, everybody. Stay positive.
Well done, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you, everyone. Looking forward to see you next week on the Transformational Tuesday, right? Think well, live well, be well, stay safe, and be kind to yourself. Thank you.